Yes, so I'll get the recording underway.
Brilliant, thank you, Dan. Okay, well, first of all, everyone, thank you for joining us this evening. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Gemma Gwilliam. I'm one of the educational technologists at United Learning, and I work alongside Dan, Bruce and James as part of the EdTech team. And we're really lucky today to have two very kind volunteers supporting us. So I've got Sarah McAvery from Beacon View Primary Academy, down where I am in Portsmouth, and then Gemma Poizer from William Humes Grammar School. So it's great to have these guys with us and sharing how we're going to be looking at using everything we were using during lockdown beyond remote learning. So in today's session, we're going to have a bit of an introduction. Then Sarah's going to talk about Teams. I'm going to look at forms. Dan's going to look at Class Notebook. And then Gemma's going to be looking at using PowerPoint. Then I have taken a few little elements from last week's CPD, if you weren't lucky enough to attend, and look more at how all the different apps we can use, and we have been using during remote learning, we can continue to use to enhance teaching and learning as we return to normal. And there will, of course, be a Q&A session at the end for us. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat box, and myself or Dan or Gemma or Sarah will pick these up as quickly as we can for you. So this session was called Beyond Remote Learning, Apps for the Classroom. And it's all about integrating that best practice from the online classroom into everyday teaching and learning. And we've really tried to hope that this follows on from the previous CPD sessions that you've been fortunate to attend. And we'll hopefully give you some practical strategies and tools to take away with you. So we're hoping that everyone has one little nugget that they can take. Now, this might be that you end up using technology to substitute an activity that you have planned. It might be for augmentation. It might be that you're looking to modify learning activities within the classroom and enhance them by the technology uses that we're now all capable of using. Or it might be that you're going to redefine what you do. And by doing this, we're hoping that technology will really help you to enhance teaching and learning within your classroom. Because what we're very keen about doing is riding the wave. We've got a whole bank of skills that we're using now, and we just want to keep that momentum going for our children. So to start us off today, I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to be talking about using Teams. And in particular, I think one way that we've all benefited from using Teams, and we still are now, is the fact that we're able to run sessions like this across the whole country in the comfort of our own homes or our classrooms. So that's enough from me. Thank you, Sarah. And sorry, Sarah, I muted you automatically. So you may need to unmute.
Yep, okay, done, sorry.
That's all right.
Right, hello everyone. I'm not sure what's happened there. Feedback.
Have you got a second open?
Shouldn't have.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you, Sarah.
Right, I'll start again. Hello everyone, I'm a Year 5 teacher and the DT subject lead at Beacon View in Portsmouth. Teams has been a fantastic resource. I started using it in September and I quickly became very excited by it. At first, I found all the technology daunting, but the advantage with Teams is that all of the functions and the toolbars, etc., are all in Microsoft, so you don't have to learn new controls with each application. I haven't explored all the features yet. There's far too many on there, but that is definitely something I need to do. One of the features on Teams is the ability to upload, embed, and share videos. I'm sure we've all had videos that don't load, but this is reduced if you do upload them and embed them into your applications. It also helps if your school has blocked YouTube, for example, and the children often don't have parental controls on the videos that they watch at home. So this prevents that happening as well. During remote teaching, I use Class Notebook to upload work to send to the children, which they were then able to write on and send back. In the collaborative pages, the children were able to see their peers responding to questions, which was good for them for peer support and making them still feel connected to their classrooms. I will continue to use this for interventions and setting homework and differentiation. The immersive reader, which you'll hear a bit more about later, is a great tool for ensuring the children can access the text as it reads them for them as they highlight it. One concern I did have was, would I still use all these skills I've learned and the technology now we're back in class? Well, I considered how I could do this. So I thought one of the things I could do was the homework. So I thought about the spellings, and if you look on the slide, I have included one of my spelling sheets, and actually I put the voice recorder on there because I thought it would be good for me to read the spellings to the children, and then they could listen to me reading them and then write them down as they thought they should be spelt. Now, the advantage of that is the application will pick up if they've spelt it incorrectly, and they can then go and look on a dictionary, an online dictionary, and I've actually put Word Hippo into that sheet. I've embedded Word Hippo because that's just what we use in our classroom, and they can check the word. And that would also be helpful if they then went on to do sentences involving that word, which I thought was really helpful for them. And the immersive reader again could be used to read back to them what they've written. I'm also going to keep up with the reading logs, as these were very successful for most of the children, and it gave them the opportunity to be heard reading, which is something they don't always get daily or even weekly at home. So just to know there was someone at the other end listening to them reading and then responding to them, I just thought was invaluable and needed to be kept up. Okay, Gemma will talk more about forms, and Dan is also going to talk more about Notebook. As they will explain, it's great for giving feedback, and it will also stop the paper trail that goes back and forth from home, which normally happens when we send out homework. I hope this has been useful, and if anyone else has any other tips for using Teams, please pop them in the chat box. I'm going to hand over to Gemma to start talking to you about forms.
Brilliant, thank you, Sarah. And I think we'll all agree that actually having someone that's using Teams, they used it during lockdown and is keeping that momentum going as they've returned to a classroom. I particularly really like the idea of the spellings. And for someone who finds spelling difficult, I think if I'd been able to hear my teacher each night as I was practicing my spellings, that would really help me. Sarah, quick question. Have you got any children isolating still, so they're accessing this at home from your class?
Not personally in my class, but I know school does. So we've kept all the online learning platforms open. And one of the things that works really well at the moment is the online assemblies. So when we do an assembly, the children at home are able to log in and they feel like they're still part of the school because they can see their classes and join in with the assembly.
That's a really lovely idea. And if anyone does have any other ways that they're using Teams that are happy to share with people, as Sarah said, please pop it into the chat box, because these sessions are all about sharing good practice as well as us talking about the ways that we've been using technology. So moving on, as Sarah said, I'm going to talk about forms, and many of you may have been used to using forms before remote learning surveys. You may have used them for your quizzes during remote learning, but actually they're a fantastic tool to be using as we return to the classroom. So one of the things that I love about forms is that you can put your key question with the use of image to support the learning. Then you're able to anticipate and address misconceptions. So we're all used to seeing this in the classroom, and yes, 1 times 18 is 18, but some children may have put 2 times 9 is 18 because they've counted as 18 and they know that 2 times 9 is 18. Similarly, they may have chosen 1 plus 18 equals 18 because they've got the symbol wrong. Now, this is instant feedback that we can give to the children within the classroom. Another great feature about forms is that you can use branching. Now, I know that in some classes, the children choose what activity they're doing, or you may have different activities planned for different children, depending on what lesson you're doing. With the instant feedback option, by using forms, this is an example of what the children will see. So perhaps if you integrated a form into your classroom and it was at the end of a lesson and they scan the QR code, or it's sent to them, or it's even embedded into their notebook or on their Teams page, the children can complete it independently and get their feedback. So if they get it right, it will come up green. If they get it incorrect, it will be pink with the feedback for them. So it's instant regardless of if they're in the classroom or if they're at home. Now, here are some examples that I've been kindly sent by colleagues across UL. For example, instead of having a termly grammar assessment on a Word document that you have to then go back and mark, if the children complete it independently through forms, they can rearrange the words to form sentences. They can look at their word classes. You can also use them for the English Spring end of term assessment. So I know many people would have done the Vanjat Poor narrative unit, and this year group actually turned theirs into a quiz for the children to answer. We then had some whole class reading examples. So you've got some stat style questions, you've got some ordering events questions. There's also some branching. So once the children have read the text, they can go through and decide what level they want to work at for that lesson. Now, I myself absolutely love doing the end of unit quizzes for our history and our geography and our science. But one way that we've started to move towards using these now is putting them into forms. So that then again, the children can complete them independently, and then we can talk through them as a class. Same as your pre-learning quiz, because you can put your images in and you can give the children different options. It's then taking it away from the PowerPoint and allowing them to work independently. And Dan and I have even created some examples for you for computing units. So there's no end to what forms can do for you. Now, as well as being able to use those as quizzes for the children to access, regardless of if they're in the classroom or at home, it gives you a whole array of data that you can use. So, for example, in this quiz that I produced, I saw that actually only 13% of the class got this right. So I know as a teacher that I perhaps need to recap and review what a biome is. And I can put this into a quadrant. It might be in my weekly and monthly reviews, just so it's got the stickability factor. I can also look pupil by pupil. So I can see that this child only took 2 minutes to complete their quiz. And actually for their answer, they put not sure, sorry. So I can go back to that individual child and work with them to see, do they know how plants and animals adapt, or is this something that I need to work with them on? And then you can also get an Excel document. So every quiz that you complete does produce data into an Excel table. Now, the only thing is that if children continue to submit quizzes after you've downloaded the Excel table, you do have to download it again, but that's fine because the amount of data that you're getting is the information, you can group it, you can sort it, you can use it to compare. So if you think about your pre-learning and post-learning quizzes, or if we think about those end of unit assessments and that stickability, you can then see what areas you need to work on again. So I have included a link to a webinar that I did on forms down the bottom here for you, which you'll get when you get the resources. Because if you haven't used forms before, they don't take long to produce and they have a real impact in the classroom, particularly because the children can see them on any devices and you can email them, you can create QR codes and you can embed them. So I particularly like using forms beyond remote learning because they can be self-marking for quick and efficient feedback. But children don't actually have to sign in or use their Microsoft accounts, and they're weather mobile friendly. The immersive reader, which Dan's going to talk more about as well, is one of my favourite tools, and those of you that have worked with me will know how much I use the immersive readers to support my own reading and spelling. By using forms instead of quizzes, or printed out piece of paper, you're not going to lose it, and it prevents that paper trail that Sarah was talking about. If the children do log in through their Microsoft account, it will track it for you. And as I said, you can export these quiz scores to Excel for the end of a lesson. You can add these into workflow and class teams, and you can even use the polls feature during live lessons to add questions. I particularly enjoy sharing these through QR codes at the end of a lesson, and the children quite enjoy scanning these, but you can put them into emails as well. I've seen examples and shared with you whole class reading, maths, end of unit assessments, but let's not forget that actually we've got this tool now and the children will be making these too. So hopefully you've managed to find a use for forms beyond remote learning. Again, if you have any questions or further suggestions, pop them into the chat box, but I'm going to now hand you over to Dan, who's going to share a little bit more about Class Notebook. Thank you, Dan. You should be able to request control. There we go.
Thanks very much, Gemma, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to just take you through class notebook, it was one Sarah started off talking about at the beginning of our session. I just want to go in a little bit more detail about that. Not all of us are used to using class notebook, and I think that anyone who's discovered it during our remote learning period will have been hooked on it because it's such a useful app to use. I like it because it keeps navigation much easier for pupils. So this point here about a master document, instead of having 30 sheets, scattered all over the various cloud storage that you're using, you can have everything embedded in a single OneNote class notebook. So the children have all their work in one place, makes it much easier for them to navigate and find their work. It also provides a space for a digital portfolio. So during different stages of the year, we can have a look at what children have created digitally. It can be all in one place. That could be useful for reviews. It could be useful for parents' evenings, or for when you're end of year handing things on to the next teacher. What I also like about Class Notebook is it is a way of handing out digital work. A bit like you've got assignments in Teams, you can manage your workflow through Class Notebook if you so wish, and create a digital worksheet and hand it to every pupil in your class who's a member of that particular notebook. So that's really handy. No more running off to the photocopier. Let's go green. Let's get environmentally friendly and start using this tool as part of our workflow. Obviously, it's going to be useful for homework, as Sarah mentioned, reading logs, etc. Anywhere where you want to have this kind of digital log of work. And there'll be times when children have access to devices in school. You can get them to do their work in their class notebook. We also know, as has been previously said, we've got this immersive reader tool. It'll read for you. It'll access a picture dictionary for well-known nouns and verbs. It'll translate if you require it. So if you've got a Polish child in the class, they can use immersive reader to get those kind of translations that would help work becomes much more accessible. And as we've heard about the reading log, being able to quickly record on an audio recording instead of having to write makes it much more accessible. So the teachers don't have to write lots of feedback, they can record feedback. If children aren't able to write or they quickly want to capture their ideas, they can do it through an audio recording and it just pops it in to the notebook. So really useful platform. I'll show you just a few more bits and pieces to do with that. We can see that Class Notebook is made up of these various sections, and it's just worth understanding what these sections are. So everybody can access a collaboration space if you choose to make that available. You can turn it off, but it means you could have a word bank where all the children are putting forward their ideas for poetry, or maybe it's just where they can help each other solve problems. We also get a content library where pupils have only read-only access. So if you've got a master sheet that you want them to be able to read but not edit, then it can go in the collaboration space. We also have a teacher-only area. That's pretty useful for where teachers are working on something and they don't want the children to access it. So it could be some worksheets, the spellings for next week that you're working on, a co-teacher where you want to compare notes. So that's a teacher only section. And then we have the pupil sections where you can have as many of these subsections as you like. So you can do the organization and management for them. You can create a coherent structure across all the different pupils' pages, and that way it's much easier, as I said, for them to navigate and find their various bits of work. Now, you may have seen that in a class team, you have a tab called Class Notebook. So whenever you create a class team, it's partially provisions a class notebook. And if you click on that tab, it'll just confirm that you do want to create the notebook, and it will populate it with all the members from your class team. So you don't have to go and find them all. It'll automatically know who they are, and it'll populate the class team with all the members. And if you do create a class notebook from your class team, then you'll be able to use that in assignments as well. So rather than just put a worksheet on there, you can make it a page from their class notebook. However, as this slide shows, you can use class notebook without using class teams. Not everybody has got class teams set up. So you may just want, I want a notebook, but I don't want a team. Well, you can do that as well. So you can create a class notebook using the class notebook app, go through all the steps, set who is a member of the class, and then which sections you want. So you could say, if you've got a specialist subject like music, you might want that outside of your class team, or you may have, you know, computing taught by somebody else. They could create a class notebook for their subject if that's how you want to organize things. Let's just move that slide on. Here we go. So this is what it looks like for a teacher. This is what it looks like for a pupil. Oh, I've obviously gone on a little bit fast. It's just a little bit slow because we're doing this combined control. Let me just go through those views again. You might better just back me up there.
Yeah.
Gemma, it seems to have gone on. It seems to be a little bit slow. But we're going forward rather than back.
It's on teacher page for you.
Great, thanks very much. So on this page, oh, I think we're on the distribute. There we go. There we go. Fantastic. Thanks, Gemma. So this is what it looks like for the teacher. Remember, they can see all the different pupil sections. So at a glance, you've got all the pupil work in one document, nice and easy. Let's move on to the next slide. I'll just let you move it forward, Gemma. It doesn't seem to be liking two of us working on it at the same time.
That's right. It's on there now, Dan, the pupil view.
Yeah, and there I can see the pupil view. Notice they only see their own work. They see the community spaces like collaboration space, like content library. And then if we move forward one more, we'll just look at how we can distribute work. So on this slide, it shows you that you, in class notebook, you've created a page. It could be a worksheet where you want them to label something or you want to write something. You can distribute that page out. So no more running to the photocopier, simply send that page to all the pupils. What a great way of kind of cutting down on photocopying and every pupil having their own special page for that poem they're writing or story you've started that they're going to continue. And then I'll just finish off with a final kind of loop on that, Gemma, by clicking on the next section after you've distributed a page, which is where you review the work. So I don't know if you could just move that forward for me, Gemma.
Yeah, it's just coming.
Here we go. So this is where you've distributed a page and you're interested in seeing the progress. So it's a bit like the assignment for workflow, but without the formality of it. You can go in and see all the different pages you've distributed and see what progress the pupils have made. From here, you can add something to that. You maybe want to give them some feedback. Maybe you want to give them a well done sticker. Maybe you want to record some audio. You've got all those tools available to you. So if we just move forward one more slide, Gemma, we can then see where the various help is. So we've put together some quick PDF guides. These are all on our EdTech demonstrator page, but the links there, we'll share these slides afterwards as well, where you can access all the guidance. And there's also some YouTube tutorials there just to help you through adopting Class Notebook. If you want this to become one of your workflows post lockdown, I think it's a really useful way of supporting pupils with their digital work. And if you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat box and we'll address those during the latter part of the session. Thank you, Gemma.
Brilliant, thank you, Dan. And Matthew's made a really good point actually in the chat that using Class Notebook could be a really powerful tool when linked to interventions and catch-up groups. It could be that running record of small group or pupil work within that Class Notebook. And if you think as well about then integrating, as Sarah said, that you can put the forms in the Class Notebook and it can access a Class Notebook through Teams, it's that real joined up thinking of how we're then using all of this technology beyond remote learning. So now what I'm going to do is hand over to Gemma, who is going to be talking about how we can use PowerPoint beyond remote learning. Thank you, Gemma.
Hello everyone, I'm Gemma and I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning at William Humes, and I watched one of Dan's YouTube presentations on using PowerPoint collaboratively during our time remote teaching. I began exploring ways I could use it in my delivery and found that especially for my Year 6 writing lessons, the PowerPoint was brilliant. When we found out the children were returning, I began to think about that I didn't want this to end with PowerPoint because I was really enjoying using it and I found it really useful. I thought about that I was making sure I wasn't removing anything that worked well, instead enhancing what I was already doing. So I'm going to share with you a few things that I think work well and have started to use in the classroom since returning, and hopefully something you might get something from it too. So instant feedback. PowerPoint can be set up so that every child in your class has their own slide. This enables the teacher to have a whole class overview, so you can see all 30 children working on the PowerPoint at the same time. You just flick between. You can instantly clarify any misconceptions, and the children can use each other's work.
Dan, has Gemma gone quiet for you or just?
Yeah, I think Gemma, we've just lost you for a moment. Just try muting and unmuting your mic.
Oh,
That's a shame, Gemma. We're still struggling to hear you. It might be worth you just leaving the meeting, Gemma, and coming back in, and hopefully that will cure it. Sometimes when you get these large meetings, you do get the odd little glitch like that.
So whilst Gemma's doing that, I think she made a really good point here about the fact that with the PowerPoint, so I'm going to let the video run again for us whilst Dan lets Gemma in. It is a brilliant way of giving instant feedback, and I myself have also been looking into this. So the teacher does have the class overview. So as you'll see on here, oh, we've got Gemma back.
Yes.
There we go. Gemma, I was just saying about the fact that this is brilliant for a class overview and that every child has got their own slide. So I'll pass back to you now. Thank you, Gemma.
Yeah, and then so remote teaching, I was online for 20 minutes afterwards, and then in the moment clarifying misconceptions. But moving forward in the classroom, short burst writes, lots of children writing all on their own slide, mini lesson stops, mini plenaries, let's share, let's magpie ideas, let's steal with pride. And then we also thought about homework. Our classrooms are rich writing environments. There's vocab, there's working walls. When we start writing homework tasks, sometimes we find it's quite a lonely experience for the children, and sometimes they struggle to produce what they would in a classroom environment. We thought about using this as part of a shared writing area, so that when the children are completing their home writing tasks, it feels supported, they can steal each other's ideas, and they can really scaffold each other. So instant feedback. And then moving on to collaborative learning. We can also have single slides that lots of children work on all at the same time. We learned from lockdown that children can be and are a lot more dependent than we perhaps gave them credit for. They've followed timetables, they've met assignment deadlines, and they've been really intrinsically motivated to sign on every day and engage in remote teaching and learning. And that's something we definitely want to keep going. From children working collaboratively on one PowerPoint, they are providing models for each other. For example, you can see in the bottom of the screen, the children were working on a reading activity where the children were asked to pore over a front cover. they were asked to write questions and statements that came to them about this book. One child punctuating a question correctly could be the slight reminder another child needed just to remember to put their question mark after their question. It also could spark another idea. So a child may have an idea that sparks someone to take it that next step further. This does go hand in hand with talk partners, discussions, and doesn't remove from adult teacher modelling, but it's just a nice twist rather than always having maybe the teacher scribe for the children. It's just a different way to maybe do the lesson every now and again. And then moving on to utilising time. I know in the school day, we try and squeeze so much in, and time is so important. And I do think using PowerPoint is a really good way of, at times, making sure we're utilising time and removing jobs that can at times take away from the learning at hand. So PowerPoint can be set up with quick review tasks so that the children have a slide each and they are quickly reviewing their learning at pace, and activities such as timelines, and that can be differentiated where some children may be sorting and sequencing the events, or some people may be inputting into a timeline template. But just thinking about not always taking away from the fine motor skills, but sometimes maybe when you've asked children to cut and then organise times into a sequence, would it be quicker? Would it be more efficient for them to spend the time really honing in on the sequencing rather than cutting out the events? And then finally, another way that I really think PowerPoint can be used is for scaffolding learning. We can use audio buttons added into PowerPoint to scaffold learning. They can be used to repeat instructions to help children process a task and enable them to complete a task independently. On the screen, you'll hear a clip of me with a phonics activity where the children were asked to listen to the words and sort them into the correct phoneme column. The audio buttons would allow the children to complete the task independently. So this could be a remote learning task, or if a child within a cohort needed a real personalised lesson, it would create that independence for them to crack on their own.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Gemma. I particularly like the use of the sound buttons, and I think, again, it all ties in with what we've been talking about and what Matthew suggested about just really trying to make sure that we're using technology to enhance that teaching and learning. And it's the different elements, the audio, the immersive reader, that will then support our children. So thank you very much for that, Gemma. Now, as we come towards the end of this session, there's a few bits that I've taken from last week that I'm going to build upon, just because I feel they're really important when we're talking about technology. So one element of this was about, when we're capturing the best bits, let's think about cognitive overload. And last week we looked at the fact that we had to keep our slides simple for the children at home. And this is something that I really feel will support the children as we're moving forward when they return to the classroom. Let's think about the effect of learning that our slides have on our children. Then you've got your retrieval practice. So when you're using your flashback 4 and your quadrants, these can also be produced in PowerPoint. They could be shared through whiteboard.fi, and they can be shared through Notebook. And then you've got that written digital record of the activities the children are completing. Then we come on to Sway. So many of us were using Sway during the first lockdown as our opportunity for home learning. But now that we're returning, I know that some schools are using them for newsletters. I know some for homework, for independent learning activities. I don't know if she's on this call, but Vicky Chatterton did a brilliant Sway about Sway for me, where she talked about how she did a parent workshop through a Sway. And these are just some of the ways that Sway can then be continued to use. With Teams, Sarah talked about the fact that it is a collaborative platform and the children do feel a part of the community, as many of us do with our now established teams within our school, for our meetings and for network opportunities like this. You've also got your interventions and breakout rooms. Then our 3 main apps that we talked about today, Word, PowerPoint and Notebook. Remember that these can be used for your guided practice, for your modelling. It might be that you're giving the children the opportunity for their independent practice to create their own digital portfolio. You can scaffold when you're working with the children on PowerPoint. Your monthly reviews, that feedback element, by using the audio, by using the written feedback and the stickers, you're able to give children instant feedback, which you wouldn't necessarily be able to do. The collaboration element is fantastic for all children and for staff. And there it is again, the immersive reader and the dictate option, meaning that everyone can access the learning you're providing. OneDrive, hopefully we're beginning to use OneDrive for sharing, planning and resources. Forms, use those forms for the parent, staff and pupil feedback. Start of year forms, permission slips. I saw a brilliant example the other day of extracurricular activities being sent out via a sway. So they were described in a sway, and at the end of the sway, a form was embedded so that the children can sign up to their activities. No more paper needing to go back and forth. Then whiteboard.fi, if you're still using this, it can be used for your small group work, and it saves work that otherwise may have been rubbed off of whiteboards. Now, these apps are all within 365, but there are many other apps beyond remote learning that we can continue to use. But what I do say with any of these is do make sure that you've got the relevant DPIA in place, and I have included a link here, before using in line with GDPR. So one of these is Plickers, and if any of you were in Manchester in August 2019 and attended the IT session with Dan, that's where I learned about Plickers. And I think they're brilliant because the children hold them themselves, they don't need a device, and you can easily do your monthly reviews by using technology. Kahoot now offers both a remote learning and an in-class learning option. Padlet, I've started experimenting with looking at Padlet as an interactive working wall, but do make sure that DPIA is in place if you're using them. I know the book clubs quite often use them to record the books that they've been reading and to give recommendations. Then you've also got Explain Everything and Showbie. Then last week, I know that Jen and Karen talked about key knowledge and comprehension. And you've got all of these different apps that the children can be accessing to continue to enhance teaching and learning, giving them a different way to think about the activities they're doing. So that brings us to the end of our session now, because we wanted to give some time for Q&A, for sharing good practice, and we will stay online. So if you want us to show any of the activities that we've shared today, we're more than happy to do so. Before I do hand over to everyone else, can I just say a big thank you to Sarah, to Gemma, Charlotte and Darcy, who provided resources, and obviously everyone involved in last week's CPD, because you have contributed to this as well. And next week, I know that Sarah's going to be leading a session for everyone on reading, so particularly those strategies and guidance to ensure rapid catch up for our readers. So we do hope this evening's been useful. I'm not sure if Matthew is still on the call and wanted to add anything, but we're all more than happy to stay on and answer any questions for you. So thank you, everyone.
Oh. Thank you so much, Gemma. Although I said I was going at 4, I've actually stayed on because I've actually pushed my next meeting back because I was so engrossed in some of the information that's being shared there. And any of you on the call who are working in the schools, who work with myself, I think we might be revisiting this this recording in the very near future. I found it particularly helpful in respect of that alignment of what's the best practice of the remote learning strategy, how people have picked up really quickly some of those really pertinent and timely tools, and then how that's going to be related back into the scary world of catch up, but also the everyday teaching. And what I'm really excited about is actually seeing this in practice day in day out across the group, and in particular how it's going to be embedded in everybody's practice. And this is the first time I think in a millennia, or as long as I've been teaching anyway, where actually we're in a position where technology is embedded and integral in the teaching and learning across our schools, and it's not just well, let's have this lovely little shiny all singing and dancing thing in the corner. So absolutely amazing, and I thank everybody for their support on this one.
Brilliant, thank you, Matthew, and thank you for this opportunity. It is exciting, and I know you and I have had many a conversation about keep using technology, so we will. It will be there for everyone. Okay, I will stop sharing. Dan, if you want to stop recording. Have we got any questions coming through?